Jasmine, a proud and attentive mother, arrives at the local park with her two children, Amir and Zoe. It's a typical sunny day, and the vibrant energy of the park matches the children's excitement. Amir, the elder of the two, sprints toward the playground with Zoe, a bundle of curls and laughter, close on his heels. Jasmine watches them with a contented smile, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. This is what she lives for. These moments of pure, unfiltered joy where her children can be themselves, free and unburdened. As Amir climbs the jungle gym and Zoe eagerly heads for the swings, Jasmine finds a quiet spot on a bench nearby. She's soon joined by her friend Maya, an outspoken community activist known for her efforts to promote inclusion and unity. The two women greet each other warmly, their conversation quickly turning to the significance of these simple outings. They discuss how vital it is for children like Amir and Zoe to experience a world where they are safe and accepted, where their happiness isn't shadowed by the prejudices of others. Unbeknownst to them, their neighbor Karen, a woman whose intolerance has often caused friction in the community, watches from a distance. Karen's eyes narrow as she observes Jasmine and her children. To her, the sight of this joyful Black family represents an intrusion into what she believes should be a space for people like her. Her discomfort grows, fueled by an unfounded sense of superiority and a deep-seated bias she refuses to confront. As Jasmine and Maya continue their conversation, oblivious to Karen's scrutiny, the stage is set for an encounter that will test the strength of the community and reveal the harsh realities of living in a society still grappling with racism. As Jasmine continues to enjoy the peaceful day at the park with Amir and Zoe, Karen's discomfort festers into something more sinister. Fueled by her own biases and the irrational belief that Jasmine must be up to no good simply because of the color of her skin, Karen decides to take action. She pulls out her phone and dials 911, her voice dripping with false concern as she describes a scene that doesn't exist. Karen claims that Jasmine is an irresponsible mother and suggests that the children might be in danger, all while her eyes remain locked on the family from across the park. Jasmine, still unaware of Karen's actions, is completely immersed in the joy of watching her children play. Amir is helping Zoe on the swing, pushing her higher and higher as her giggles fill the air. It's a moment of pure, innocent happiness, the kind that Jasmine treasures. But that tranquility is abruptly shattered when two police officers enter the scene. Their presence is a stark contrast to the carefree environment of the park, and Jasmine's smile fades as she notices them approaching. Confused and a little anxious, Jasmine rises to meet the officers, wondering what could possibly be wrong. The officers, following standard procedure, begin asking her questions, their tone professional, but laced with the tension that often accompanies such encounters. They mention the call they received, detailing the supposed neglect and danger to the children. Jasmine, taken aback, struggles to comprehend what they are saying. Her children? In danger? She looks over at Amir and Zoe, who are still playing, completely oblivious to the situation unfolding just a few feet away. The officers, noticing the innocence and joy in the children's behavior, begin to question the validity of Karen's report. They approach Amir and Zoe, asking them simple questions about their day. The children's responses are filled with the exuberance of youth, describing their excitement over the swings and the jungle gym. The officers exchange glances, realizing that the call they responded to might not have been based on reality, but rather on prejudice. Jasmine, still reeling from the shock of being questioned in this way, feels the first stirrings of anger and fear as she begins to understand what might be happening. The initial confusion gives way to a rising tension as Jasmine tries to explain the situation to the officers. Her voice, steady yet laced with frustration, conveys the truth that she's simply a mother enjoying a day at the park with her children. But beneath her calm exterior, Jasmine feels a wave of vulnerability. Standing before these officers, she is painfully aware of the potential dangers that come with such encounters. The weight of the situation presses down on her, and the peaceful day she envisioned is rapidly unraveling into a nightmare. The officers, now sensing the discomfort in Jasmine's voice, attempt to remain impartial, but the air is thick with unspoken fears and the heavy presence of authority. One officer, noticing the growing unease, tries to de-escalate by asking more about the children's day, hoping to bring some normalcy back to the situation. But for Jasmine, The fact that this interaction is happening at all is a stark reminder of the racial biases that persist in her community. Meanwhile, Karen, who initiated this whole ordeal, watches from her vantage point. She sees the officers talking to Jasmine and feels a mix of emotions. Part relief that her call was taken seriously, part anxiety as she realizes she might have escalated a situation that was never problematic to begin with. As the scene unfolds, Karen's initial confidence wavers, replaced by a growing doubt. What if she was wrong? What if this wasn't about protecting anyone, but rather about her own discomfort with seeing a happy black family in her neighborhood? One of the officers, having noticed Karen's presence, decides to approach her. His expression is one of skepticism, as he's beginning to suspect that the real issue here might not be about safety, but rather prejudice. Karen's heart races as the officer walks toward her, the reality of her actions beginning to set in. She stumbles over her words as she tries to justify her call, but the officer's questions are pointed, and his tone suggests that he's not entirely buying her story. Back with Jasmine, the other officer finishes his questions, offering her a vague reassurance that everything seems fine. But Jasmine knows better. The damage has been done. The innocence of their day shattered, replaced by the harsh reality of discrimination. As the officer returns to his partner, Jasmine watches, a mix of anger, fear, and sadness swirling inside her. She feels exposed, judged, and most painfully, powerless to shield her children from the prejudice that brought the police to their side in the first place. After the officers finally leave, Jasmine stands still for a moment, trying to gather herself. The tension that had gripped her during the confrontation lingers, but there's also a growing sense of determination. She spots Maya, who has been watching from a distance, and walks over to her. The usually calm and collected Jasmine feels a storm of emotions brewing inside her. Anger, frustration, and a deep sadness for what just happened. Maya, sensing the turmoil within her friend, wraps Jasmine in a comforting embrace. "This isn't something you can just let slide," Maya says, her voice firm yet compassionate. She knows Jasmine well enough to understand that she might be inclined to brush off the incident for the sake of her children's peace. But Maya also knows that this is precisely the kind of situation that needs to be addressed head-on. "We can't let this go unchallenged," she continues, her eyes meeting Jasmine's with a look of resolve. Jasmine nods, though her heart is heavy. She realizes that what happened today isn't just a personal affront. It's a symptom of a much larger problem. "What do we do?" Jasmine asks, her voice still shaky but now carrying a note of determination. Maya suggests organizing a community meeting at the park, a gathering where they can openly discuss the issues of prejudice and acceptance that have been simmering beneath the surface for too long. Jasmine hesitates for only a moment before agreeing. She knows this isn't just about her. It's about every family that has ever been judged, marginalized, or discriminated against for simply existing. As they begin to plan the event, a noticeable shift occurs in the atmosphere of the park. Other parents, having witnessed the interaction with the police, start to gather around them. Some offer words of support, while others express their own frustrations and fears about similar experiences. Jasmine feels a wave of solidarity as more people join in, and what started as a simple day at the park is now turning into the beginnings of a movement. The conversation soon turns to logistics: who will speak, what issues should be addressed, how they can ensure a large turnout. The more they talk, the more the ideas flow, and soon, a clear plan starts to take shape. Jasmine, who at the beginning of the day only wanted a peaceful outing with her children, now finds herself at the forefront of what could be a pivotal moment for her community. As she looks around at the growing circle of supporters, she feels a renewed sense of purpose. This isn't just about fighting back against what happened to her and her children. It's about creating a safer, more inclusive space for everyone. The day of the community meeting arrives, and the park, once just a place for relaxation and play, is now transformed into a gathering space filled with anticipation and purpose. Word of the incident has spread throughout the neighborhood, and people from all walks of life have come to listen, learn, and share their own experiences. Jasmine stands near the makeshift stage, a small platform hastily put together with a few crates and a microphone. Her heart pounds with a mix of nerves and resolve. She's never been one to speak in public, but today is different. Today, her voice is needed. As the meeting begins, Maya steps up first, introducing the purpose of the gathering. She speaks with her usual clarity and passion, explaining that the meeting is not just a response to the incident at the park, but a call to address the deeper issues of racism and discrimination that persist within their community. Her words resonate with the crowd, many of whom nod in agreement, their faces a blend of determination and hope. When it's Jasmine's turn to speak, she takes a deep breath and steps forward. The crowd falls silent, all eyes on her. She begins by recounting the events of that day, how a simple outing with her children turned into an encounter with the police, all because of a baseless and prejudiced accusation. Her voice is steady, but the emotion is palpable as she describes the fear and confusion she felt, and the innocence that was stripped away from her children in that moment. As she speaks, she notices the faces in the crowd. Some are pained, others are angry, but most of all, they are empathetic. Many of them have experienced similar moments, where the color of their skin or their cultural background made them targets of suspicion or hostility. Jasmine's words strike a chord, and by the time she finishes, the atmosphere is charged with a powerful sense of unity. One by one, other parents and community members stand up to share their own stories. There's the father who was followed around a store simply because of his race, the mother whose child was singled out in school for their accent, the young man who was unjustly stopped and searched on his way home. Each story adds to the collective narrative of a community that has long been subjected to prejudice, and with each story, the bond among the attendees grows stronger. As the meeting progresses, the initial anger and frustration begin to give way to a more constructive dialogue. Ideas are exchanged on how to tackle these issues, from organizing more community events to promoting better cultural understanding in schools. The meeting, which started as a response to a single incident, evolves into a broader conversation about how to make the neighborhood a more inclusive and supportive environment for everyone. By the end of the gathering, there's a palpable sense of accomplishment. The attendees leave with a renewed commitment to each other and to the cause of justice and equality. For Jasmine, the day has been transformative. She came to the park expecting a simple outing with her children, but she leaves having played a key role in uniting her community against the forces of discrimination. As she watches the crowd disperse, she feels a deep sense of pride and hope for the future. After the community meeting, Karen is left alone with her thoughts. The echoes of Jasmine's speech and the stories shared by others filter through her mind, creating a tumultuous mix of guilt and reflection. She had initially seen the meeting as something to be avoided, but curiosity and a nagging sense of accountability compel her to visit the park and see for herself what has transpired. As Karen approaches the park, she is met with a noticeably different atmosphere. The air is charged with a sense of unity and purpose, and the once familiar space now feels charged with the collective voices of a community coming together. She is met with glances from the attendees. Some are curious, others are clearly displeased. Karen feels the weight of their scrutiny as she walks through the crowd, her steps hesitant. Standing on the periphery, Karen watches as people continue to gather, discussing ways to move forward and address the issues of racism that have been laid bare. She is struck by the sincerity of their commitment to change and the openness with which they share their personal experiences. The realization hits her hard. The prejudice she had harbored and acted upon was not just a personal failing but a reflection of a broader issue that affects many people. Karen's internal conflict intensifies as she hears snippets of conversations about overcoming biases and fostering inclusivity. The voices are passionate and filled with hope, and they contrast sharply with the prejudice that led her to make that fateful call to the police. She begins to question her own motives and the impact of her actions on Jasmine and her family, as well as on the community as a whole. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, Karen decides to confront her own role in this situation. She approaches a small group of community members who are engaged in a discussion about future actions. With a deep breath, she introduces herself and admits that she was the one who called the police. The group listens in stunned silence as Karen tries to articulate her regrets. She expresses her discomfort with how she let her biases dictate her actions and acknowledges the hurt she caused. The reaction from the group is mixed. Some people are receptive to Karen's admission, recognizing it as a step toward acknowledging and addressing the problem. Others, however, are less forgiving, seeing her apology as insufficient in light of the damage done. Karen is left feeling exposed and vulnerable, her previous sense of righteousness now replaced by a stark awareness of her own flaws and the broader societal issues they represent. Despite the mixed responses, Karen decides to stay for the remainder of the meeting. She listens, observes, and absorbs the gravity of what the community is striving to achieve. The experience serves as a painful but necessary confrontation with her own prejudices, and she begins to grapple with the choice she must make. To either retreat into her old ways or confront and change her biases, contributing positively to the ongoing efforts for acceptance and equality. During the meeting, the tension in the air is palpable as Karen wrestles with her conscience. Despite her earlier discomfort, she feels an overwhelming need to make amends. As the gathering continues, she takes a deep breath and steps forward, her heart pounding. The crowd's murmurs quiet down as they notice her approach, their eyes filled with curiosity and a hint of skepticism. Karen reaches Jasmine, who is talking with a group of supportive parents. Jasmine's face reflects a mix of surprise and guardedness as Karen addresses her. "Jasmine, I need to talk to you," Karen says, her voice trembling slightly. The weight of her previous actions is heavy on her shoulders, and she struggles to find the right words. I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I called the police on you and your children, and I realize now how wrong that was." Jasmine looks at Karen with a blend of cautious curiosity and disbelief. The pain and betrayal from the earlier incident are still fresh, and she's unsure whether to accept Karen's apology or demand more accountability. Karen continues, her voice cracking as she admits, "My actions were driven by my own prejudices and fears. I didn't see your family as part of this community. I saw you as a threat, and that was wrong. I'm truly sorry." The crowd, sensing the gravity of the moment, watches in silence. Some members shift uncomfortably, while others show signs of empathy. The atmosphere is tense as everyone waits to see how Jasmine will respond. Jasmine's initial reaction is one of guarded skepticism, but she recognizes the courage it takes for Karen to admit her mistakes publicly. After a moment of contemplation, Jasmine speaks. Her voice is calm but firm as she responds, "Karen, I appreciate that you've come forward and apologized. It takes a lot of courage to admit when you're wrong. However, words alone can't undo the harm that was done. What matters now is what you do next, how you change and how you contribute to making things right." Karen nods, tears welling up in her eyes. "I understand," she replies. "I want to learn and to be a part of the change. I'll do whatever it takes to make amends and support the community in moving forward." Jasmine's response is measured but hopeful. "Thank you for your willingness to change. We all have a role to play in making our community a better place. Let's work together to ensure that this doesn't happen again." The crowd responds with a mix of murmurs and nods, reflecting a collective sense of cautious optimism. Karen's admission and Jasmine's response mark a significant moment in the community's journey toward healing and reconciliation. As Karen steps back, she is met with a range of reactions from the crowd, some accepting, others still skeptical. But the dialogue has begun, and with it, the possibility of genuine change. As the community meeting draws to a close, the atmosphere in the park is one of tentative hope and renewed determination. Jasmine and Karen, now standing side by side, symbolize a new chapter for the neighborhood. The event has become more than a response to a single incident. It has evolved into a collective commitment to addressing and overcoming prejudice. The crowd, which was once filled with tension and skepticism, now buzzes with conversations about the future. There is a palpable sense of unity as people discuss concrete steps they can take to ensure that incidents of racism and discrimination are addressed more proactively. The park, which was once the site of a painful confrontation, is now seen as a symbol of resilience and change. Jasmine and Karen, having set aside their past differences, begin to work together to plan future community initiatives. They discuss organizing workshops on cultural sensitivity, setting up forums for open dialogue, and creating support systems for those affected by discrimination. Jasmine, who had initially been thrust into the spotlight by circumstance, now finds herself in a leadership role, guiding the community toward greater understanding and inclusion. Karen, for her part, is deeply committed to making amends. She starts attending the workshops and meetings organized by Jasmine and Maya, immersing herself in learning about the experiences of others and actively participating in discussions about racism and bias. Her newfound dedication is met with a mix of acceptance and scrutiny, but she remains steadfast in her resolve to contribute positively. The park, once a battleground of prejudice, transforms into a space where people gather not only for recreation but also for community-building activities. Families come together for events that celebrate diversity and foster a spirit of inclusiveness. Jasmine watches with a sense of accomplishment as children of different backgrounds play together, their laughter echoing across the park. A stark contrast to the discord that once plagued the space. The collaboration between Jasmine and Karen becomes a focal point for the community's efforts. Their partnership, though born out of conflict, becomes a powerful symbol of reconciliation and progress. As they work together, they begin to bridge the gaps between different groups within the neighborhood, fostering a sense of collective responsibility and shared purpose. In the weeks that follow, the community's commitment to change solidifies. Jasmine and Karen, once adversaries, now stand as allies in the fight against prejudice. Their journey from confrontation to collaboration serves as a reminder that true progress requires not only acknowledging past mistakes, but also actively working toward a better future. The park, rebranded as a place of acceptance and unity, reflects the community's renewed dedication to creating a welcoming environment for all. Jasmine, watching her children play and interact with new friends, feels a deep sense of fulfillment. The efforts of the past few weeks have transformed not just the park but the community itself, creating a legacy of inclusivity and hope for future generations. Jasmine's story quickly spreads beyond the boundaries of her neighborhood, capturing attention on social media and in local news outlets. The incident at the park, initially a personal and local issue, becomes a focal point in broader discussions about racism and community solidarity. Articles and posts detail the confrontation, the community meeting, and the subsequent efforts to address prejudice and foster inclusivity. The coverage is a mix of sympathetic and critical. Supporters praise Jasmine for her courage and resilience, highlighting her role in transforming a negative experience into a powerful movement for change. Her story resonates with many who have faced similar biases and serves as an inspiration for those advocating for equality and justice. On the other hand, there are also critical voices questioning the effectiveness of the community's response and the sincerity of Karen's apology. Some argue that while the incident is a significant step forward, it should not overshadow the ongoing need for systemic changes and deeper, long-term solutions to combat racism. These discussions spark debates about the nature of reconciliation and the ways in which communities can genuinely address issues of prejudice. Despite the mixed reactions, the increased visibility of Jasmine's story brings valuable attention to the broader issues at hand. The spotlight on the park and the community's efforts leads to a surge in interest from organizations and activists who offer support and resources. Jasmine is invited to speak at various events, share her experiences, and participate in panels focused on diversity and inclusion. Her voice becomes a key part of a larger dialogue about race and community. Karen, too, faces the fallout of her actions. The media coverage exposes her past behavior, revealing a history of similar complaints and raising questions about her motives. The scrutiny forces Karen to confront the reality of her actions and their impact on others. She begins to engage more deeply with the community, participating in discussions and initiatives to prove her commitment to change. Her efforts are met with varying degrees of acceptance and skepticism, as people weigh the authenticity of her transformation. The story of Jasmine and Karen becomes a case study in the power of personal growth and community response. It serves as a reminder of the importance of addressing prejudice and fostering dialogue. The park, now a symbol of unity, attracts visitors from other neighborhoods and becomes a venue for community events focused on promoting inclusivity. For Jasmine, the increased attention brings both opportunities and challenges. While she appreciates the support and the chance to advocate for important issues, she also grapples with the pressures of being in the public eye. She remains focused on her mission to build a more inclusive community, using her platform to push for meaningful changes and to encourage others to join in the fight against discrimination. As the story continues to unfold, it becomes clear that the impact of Jasmine's experience extends far beyond her neighborhood. It sparks conversations and actions that contribute to a broader movement for racial justice and community cohesion, demonstrating the power of individual and collective efforts in creating positive change. The story of Jasmine's confrontation and the subsequent community meeting quickly spreads beyond the confines of the park. Local news outlets pick up the story, and social media platforms buzz with discussions about the events that transpired. The narrative, once a personal ordeal for Jasmine and her family, becomes a symbol of the broader struggle against racial prejudice and discrimination. Media coverage of the incident highlights the challenges faced by Jasmine and the way the community rallied to support her. Articles and reports emphasize the positive outcomes of the meeting, showcasing the constructive dialogue and collaborative efforts that followed. Jasmine's story resonates with many, drawing attention to the need for ongoing conversations about race and inclusion. Public support for Jasmine grows, with many expressing admiration for her courage in speaking out and for her role in fostering positive change within the community. The response is overwhelmingly positive, and Jasmine is invited to speak at various events and forums dedicated to discussing racial issues and community building. Her story becomes a powerful example of how a single incident can spark a movement for social change. Karen, too, finds herself in the spotlight, though her journey is more complex. The media coverage is mixed, with some praising her for taking responsibility and seeking to make amends, while others criticize her for the initial harm caused. Despite the varied reactions, Karen remains committed to her path of self-improvement and community involvement. She attends workshops, engages in discussions about bias, and continues to work alongside Jasmine to support their shared goals. As Jasmine's story gains traction, it also serves as a catalyst for similar discussions in other communities. People reach out to Jasmine and Maya, seeking advice on how to address issues of prejudice and discrimination in their own neighborhoods. The story's impact underscores the importance of community solidarity and proactive efforts in combating racism. The increased attention also prompts local officials and organizations to consider new policies and initiatives aimed at promoting inclusivity and addressing racial bias. Jasmine is invited to participate in panels and advisory boards focused on creating more equitable environments in public spaces and institutions. The community's support for Jasmine and the changes implemented at the park lead to a broader movement for social justice. The park itself becomes a symbol of progress and unity, with new features added to celebrate diversity and foster inclusion, such as multicultural murals and interactive displays that highlight different cultural traditions. Jasmine, while grateful for the support and attention, remains focused on the long-term goal of sustaining the positive changes initiated by this incident. She continues to advocate for ongoing education and dialogue, ensuring that the community remains engaged in the fight against prejudice and committed to creating a welcoming environment for all. The ripple effect of Jasmine's story demonstrates the power of collective action and the ability of individuals to drive meaningful change. It serves as a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there is potential for growth, understanding, and transformation. As the community begins to heal and move forward, the fallout from Karen's actions takes a more serious turn. The police, prompted by the numerous complaints and the high-profile nature of the incident, conduct a thorough investigation into Karen's history of false reports. What they uncover is troubling. Karen has a pattern of making unfounded allegations in the past, and this latest incident is just one in a series of similar cases. The investigation reveals that Karen had previously made several calls to authorities under false pretenses, each time resulting in unnecessary distress for the individuals targeted. The police compile a report detailing these incidents, and the findings are forwarded to the local authorities for further action. This scrutiny brings additional attention to Karen's actions, intensifying the public and media focus on her behavior. Karen faces a community hearing where she is required to address her pattern of false reports and the damage caused. The hearing, attended by many of those who had supported Jasmine, becomes a venue for public accountability. Jasmine and other community members are present, observing the proceedings with a mix of apprehension and expectation. The atmosphere is charged as Karen is asked to explain her actions and their impact on the community. During the hearing, Karen acknowledges her past mistakes and the harm she has caused. She expresses deep remorse, acknowledging that her actions have led to distress for many individuals and undermined the trust in local institutions. The community's response is a blend of skepticism and cautious optimism. While some appreciate her attempt at accountability, others feel that her apology and acknowledgement of wrongdoing are only a small step toward rectifying the damage. As a consequence of her actions, Karen is required to make a public apology and participate in community service focused on racial sensitivity and education. She agrees to these terms, recognizing that her path to redemption involves more than just words. Karen begins attending workshops and seminars on racial bias, working to educate herself and contribute positively to the community. In contrast, Jasmine emerges from the ordeal with newfound respect and influence within the community. Her leadership in addressing the incident and her role in fostering dialogue and understanding earn her recognition from local organizations and civic groups. She is invited to participate in various community initiatives and speaks at events aimed at promoting social justice and inclusivity. The park, once a symbol of discord, is rebranded to honor Jasmine's efforts and the community's commitment to diversity. A new sign is erected, celebrating the park as a place of unity and acceptance. The change reflects the broader transformation within the community, a shift toward greater awareness and solidarity. As the park hosts its first event under its new name, Jasmine looks around and sees a gathering of diverse families and individuals coming together in celebration. The sense of accomplishment and hope is palpable. Jasmine feels a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the struggles faced have led to meaningful change and that the community is stronger and more united as a result. In the end, Jasmine's story becomes a testament to the power of resilience and the potential for positive change even in the face of adversity. The challenges faced have led to a more inclusive and supportive environment, proving that progress is possible when individuals and communities come together to confront and overcome prejudice.